happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mothers sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadam yam pe sem chen tam she dewa dang dewe gudang dempa jorchi. Dug now dang da now gi gudang drawa jorchi. Dug now me pe dewa dang mi drawa jorchi. Nay ring chak dang ni dang drel wei tang namla ne pa jorchi. Okay, thank you. So we're talking about the aspiration for good actions, the king of prayers, the king of aspiration prayers. Does anybody have any questions or comments about anything that we talked about last time or anything else up to this time? All right, we're going to continue reading this again, and we're going to talk about the meaning, the outer meaning, and maybe a little bit of the inner meaning with each of these verses. And then we're going to get to a point where we're going to recite this. Each of us is going to recite the whole thing. So not tonight, but we're going to get there. Tonight we're going to recite like we did last time, taking turns reading one page at a time. So I think it would be helpful to think of this as poetry. You know, if you were to get a book by Emily Dickinson or by Robert Frost or any of the great poets that you may know, and I'm sure that sometimes, you know, what they are writing about, what they are saying is sometimes a little bit abstract and sometimes takes a little bit of concentration, a little bit of thought, and maybe just rereading it over and over again in context may bring, you know, some understanding of this poetry. And these kinds of prayers, and this one in particular, is no different from that. So the fact that we may not totally apprehend, we might not totally understand what is being said with our first reading or our second reading or even our third reading, doesn't mean that we should suspend reading. It means that we just have to be able to give ourselves more time with it and to be able to imagine what might be said and maybe ask some questions, talk about it, think about it, and so on. And slowly meaning will start coming into ourselves. So contemplation is very important for this. Also, critical thinking is very important for this. To be able to apply many of the teachings that we've already received. And we talked about this a little bit last week, that in the 101 classes that we've had over the past many months and maybe year and so on, we've gone over the basics that are covered in the Jewel Ornamental Liberation and are covered in our outline book that I'm sure many of you have access to. So by reviewing those and then thinking about what these different teachings are about, the four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma, the four noble truths, the four immeasurables, all these different things have names, and then they have these categories that are listed within those groups and so on. So this is what Buddhism 101 is about. And if we can't apply our critical thinking to, you know, say, well, what have we talked about, and what does this mean to me, and what does this mean in the prayer, the king of prayers? That's what we need to be able to do, is to have critical thinking, application to think about this. So it may not come to us right away, but we need to work on it. So another important point about this is called the King of Prayers because it is from Manjushri, the Bodhisattva Manjushri, who is regarded as this young person, this young man, this youthful Bodhisattva, who has been trying to accumulate wisdom. And he's been going to many, many, many different teachers and asking these teachers for wisdom prayers, for ways to be able to understand the Dharma. And he has composed prayers over and over again for all these different teachers, actually 100 of them, to be able to get to this point, to be able to compose this King of Prayers, that when he met his older brother, who was a bodhisattva, the Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, who said, well, here is the King of Prayers. Here is what you've been looking for, all in this one prayer, this King of Prayers. So, so this has been a long time work for the Bodhisattva Manjushri, and has been a work of devotion by the Bodhisattva Samantabhadra to be able to assemble this, to be able to compose this and tell this. Now, all this is done through Buddha Shakyamuni, through the historical Buddha, who would, at his teachings, over 50 years of his teachings and so on, and he would have his assembly of disciples, and he would go into a meditation. He would lead into a meditation. And he would go into a meditation, and he would be more or less, to use, the modern word, he would be like channeling these different deities, these different bodhisattvas. And so during his meditation, during this, he would be reciting these prayers, and it would be as if Manjushri was flowing through him, or Samantabhadra was flowing through him. So it's all through the Buddha Shakyamuni that all this comes to us. And these are all part of what we call the Sutra Teachings, the Sutra Teachings. So there's 100 volumes of these teachings, and this is actually the last of the volumes, the last of the Sutra Teachings that is totally comprehensive of all the different teachings that the Buddha has given. And this prayer is the last of the prayers, which encapsulates the aspiration of what it is to want to be a bodhisattva, what it is to want to be the Buddha. So this prayer is magnificently important, and will lead us in a wonderful direction of giving us permission and giving us direction as to how to follow the teachings of the Buddha. So each of these verses is charged with an instruction, with a pointing out, with some revelation as to how it is that we can put ourselves on the path and stabilize ourselves on the path. So having said all that, anybody else have any questions or comments now? Yes, William.
I've got two. Vonnie and I were reading this the other day, and we come across two things that we wanted to, under Manjushri,
Page 6.
Page 6.
The very last
Okay.
paragraph.
Last paragraph, but the last line says, I shall perfectly fill every one of his aims.
Right.
Do you have any list of his aims?
These are the 100 prayers that Manjushri was going to all these great teachers to be able to find, the pathway to complete enlightenment, to Buddhahood, to fulfill himself as a bodhisattva, and then to fulfill himself as a Buddha. So many of the different teachings and so on, there's not a list that I know of, maybe in some of these prayers. I'm certainly not a scholar with this, but they are embedded in the different sutras, embedded in the different practices and prayers that we do.
Okay, and then on page 7,
Yes,
the second paragraph from the bottom,
yes,
it says all negative acts,
yes.
even the 5 immediate retribution. What are the 5 immediate retribution?
Those would be the 5 heinous crimes of killing one's father, one's killing one's mother, one killing an arhat, one defacing the Buddha, destroying the Buddha, or sexual misconduct. Is that correct?
Causing
No?
a schism, causing a schism. in
Or
the
causing a
Sangha.
schism in the
The
Sangha,
Sangha. Mhm.
causing a schism in the Sangha. Those are the 5.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay,
And
thank
so
you.
they have immediate retribution. I mean, just think about, they are so terrible that one who commits those kinds of crimes would be racked with guilt. Okay. Thank you for the question. Good questions. Anybody else? Okay. All right. So then let's begin by
Wait,
reciting. Yes.
question. I was muted. I didn't realize I was muted.
Okay.
I talked to Michael a little about this, but I'm still confused. Coming out of a Christian tradition, which is my background,
Of course.
prayers are to a supreme being.
That may be true.
Who is the audience for these prayers?
Us.
Okay, that's what Michael said, but I thought I must have missed something.
Now, if you look up prayer in the dictionary, and it will list exactly what you just said, prayers to a supreme being and so on. But if you go down about 4 or 5 different levels of that meaning of prayer, it will be as a remembrance to oneself.
Okay, so I'm trying to rise to my highest.
Correct.
Right.
So all these prayers that we do, the opening prayers, are prayers to ourselves.
All right.
And this is the king of all those prayers.
All right. Well, I just thank you for that. Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question. Your question was so beautiful. It was absolutely perfect. It was like flowers flowing from your mouth into my
Michael-
ears.
Michael never
They
said
are like dirt, that those flowers are coming and the seeds are sown.
Michael never said anything like that. He just answered the question.
If you read some of the sutras, the speech in the sutras are very flowery.
Okay.
And the way the Buddha speaks and the way the disciples speak to the Buddha and so on, it takes them, it seems like, 2 paragraphs to get to the question, because they're saying, oh, you're honorable one and all this. And the Buddha replies, oh, you're so honorable yourself. And you're also handsome too. Oh, no, he says that. But
Love it.
so these days we kind of cut to the chase a little bit.
All right. Thanks for that.
You're welcome. All right. So I'm going to go through the pages here and ask you to read these specific pages. So, Michael, if you will read page number 1, please. Then number 2, Kate T. I see you are with us. Can you read tonight, Kate?
Yes, I can.
Will you read page 2, please? Then Tom, will you read page 3? Is John with us tonight? John is not with us. Okay. So Curtis, will you read page number 4?
I'm trying to get the version from Katie. That
You
we're,
don't have the text?
I don't have it handy. It's on my computer somewhere. I just don't know which one.
Curtis, I sent it to you. It was in that envelope that I sent to
Okay.
you.
Well, I don't have that.
All right, well then, all right.
have it. I do have it.
Where's the hammer? All right. All right. All right, Curtis, we're on page number 4 of the Zhangzhou Munlam. Okay, so Curtis is going to read page number 4.
Copy that now.
Huh? Okay,
I'm on board now.
very good. All right, Rebecca, will you please read page number 5? And then Ed, will you please read page number 6? And number 7, Bhavani, will you read page number 7? Page number 8, Gary, will you read page number 8?
Okay.
And page number 9, Zara, will you read page number 9?
Hey, Lance, I'm actually traveling right now. I don't have my regular stuff with me, so I'm
All right,
not.
very good.
I-
All right, William, will you read page number 9 then? Okay, so if someone didn't get to read, we'll make sure that you get to read next time. So, but I think this will work out just fine. So, is everybody ready? So we're going to go read this, and then we're going to come back and talk about individual stanzas. So please begin on page 1, Michael. And everybody, excuse me, everybody can read along with him, or at least follow along quietly and listen, whatever suits you. So, Michael, please go ahead.
King of Aspiration Prayers, Samantabhadra's Aspiration of Good Actions, Sangcho Monlam, from the Ganda Vuha chapter of the Avatamsaka Sutra. The translator's homage to Manjushri, the youthful. The 7 preliminaries for purifying the mind. Prostration to all the
excuse me. Let me ask you to just read the text. Don't read the blue parts,
Very good.
so that it flows a little bit as the prayer, because the blue parts have been inserted by others to help to understand, to study the text and so on. So we should just read the root text as it's been translated.
I can do root.
All right, good. Please start at the beginning.
King of Aspiration Prayers, Samantabhadra's Aspiration of Good Actions, by Zangcho Monlam, from the Ganda Vyuha chapter of the Avatamsaka Sutra. Homage to Manjushri the youthful, to all the Buddhas, the lions of the human race, to all directions of the universe through past and present and future. To every single one of you, I bow in homage. Devotion fills my body, speech, and mind. Through the power of this prayer, aspiring to good action, all the victorious ones appear, vivid here before my mind. And I multiply my body as many times as atoms in the universe, each one bowing in prostration to all the Buddhas. In every atom preside as many Buddhas as there are atoms, and around them, all their Bodhisattva heirs. And so I imagine them filling completely the entire space of reality. Saluting them with an endless ocean of praise, with the sounds of an ocean of different melodies, I sing of the Buddha's noble qualities and praise all those who have gone before, have gone to perfect bliss. To every Buddha, I make offerings of the loveliest flowers, of beautiful garlands, of music and perfumed ointments, the best of parasols, the brightest lamps and finest incense. To every Buddha, I make offerings, exquisite garments, and the most fragrant scents, powdered incense, heaped as high as Mount Meru, arranged in perfect symmetry. Then the vast and unsurpassable offerings, inspired by my devotion to all the Buddhas, and moved by the power in my faith in good actions, I prostrate and offer to you all, you victorious ones.
Whatever negative acts I have committed, while driven by desire, hatred, and ignorance, with my body, my speech, and also with my mind, before you I confess and purify each and every one. With a heart full of delight, I rejoice at all the merits, O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Pratyeka Buddhas, those in training and the Arhats beyond training, and every living being throughout the entire universe. You who are like beacons of light shining through the worlds, who pass through the stages of enlightenment to attain Buddhahood, freedom from all, I exhort you. All of you protectors, turn the unsurpassable wheel of Dharma. Joining my palms together, I pray to you who intend to pass, remain for eons as many as the atoms in the world, and bring well-being and happiness to all beings. What little virtue I have gathered through my homage, through offering, confession, and rejoicing, through exhortation and prayer, all of it I dedicate to the enlightenment of all beings. Let offerings be made to Buddhas of the past and all who now dwell throughout the 10 directions of this universe. Let all who are yet to come swiftly fulfill their wishes and attain the enlightenment and Buddhahood. Let as many worlds as there are in all the 10 directions transform into realms that are vast and utterly pure, filled with Buddhas who have sat before the mighty Bodhi tree, around them all their Bodhisattva sons and daughters. Let as many sentient beings as there are in all the 10 directions live always and forever in happiness and health. Let all beings meet the Dharma that befits them best, and so may all they hope for be fulfilled.
As I practice the training for enlightenment, may I recall all my previous births and in my successive lives through death and through rebirth. May I always renounce the worldly life, training in the footsteps of all the victorious Buddhas. May I bring good action to perfection. My moral conduct be taintless and pure, never lapsing, and always free from fault. In the language of the gods, Nagas, and Yaksas, in the language of demons and of humans too. And however many kinds of speech there may be, I shall proclaim the Dharma in the language of all, taming my mind and striving in the paramitas. I will never forget the Bodhichitta. May all my harmful actions and the obscurations they cause be completely purified, every single one. May I be freed from karma, harmful emotions, and the work of negativity, and act for all beings in the world, just like the lotus flower to which mud and water cannot cling, or sun and moon that course unhindered through the sky. Throughout the reach and range of the entire universe, I shall pacify completely the suffering of all the lower realms. I shall lead all beings to happiness and work for the ultimate benefit of each and every one. I shall bring enlightened action to perfection, serve beings so as to suit their needs, teach them to accomplish good actions, and continue this throughout all the eons to come. May I always meet and be accompanied by those whose action accord with mine and embody speech and mind as well. May our actions and aspirations always be one.
May I always meet spiritual friends who long to be of true help to me and who teach me the good actions. Never will I disappoint them. May I always behold the Buddhas here before my eyes, and around them all their Bodhisattva sons and daughters, without ever tiring throughout all the eons to come. May the offerings I make them be endless and vast. May I maintain the secret teachings of the Buddhas and cause enlightened action to appear. May I train to perfection in good actions and practice these in every age to come. As I wander through all states of samsaric existence, may I gather inexhaustible merit and wisdom, and so become an inexhaustible treasure of good qualities, of skill and discernment, samadhi and liberation. In a single atom, may I see as many pure realms as atoms in the universe, and in each realm, Buddhas beyond all imagining, encircled by all their bodhisattva heirs. Along with them, may I perform the actions of enlightenment. And so, in each direction, everywhere, even on the tip of a hair, may I see an ocean of Buddhas, all to come in past, present, and future, in an ocean of pure realms. And throughout an ocean of eons, may I enter into enlightened action in each and every one. Each single word of a Buddha's speech, that voice with its ocean of qualities, bears all the purity of the speech of all the Buddhas. Sounds that harmonize with the minds of all living beings may always be engaged with the speech of the Buddhas.
With all the power of my mind, may I hear and realize the inexhaustible melody of the teachings spoken by all the Buddhas of past, present, and future as they turn the wheels of Dharma. Just as the wisdom of the Buddhas penetrates all future eons, so may I too know them instantly, and in each fraction of an instant may I know all that will ever be in past, present, and future. In an instant may I behold all those who are the lions of the human race, the Buddhas of past, present, and future. May I always be engaged in the Buddha's way of life and action through the power of liberation, where all is realized as like an illusion. On a single atom, may I actually bring about the entire array of pure realms of past, present, and future, and then enter into those pure Buddha realms in every atom, in each atom, and in each and every direction. When those who illuminate the world still to come gradually attain Buddhahood, turn the wheel of Dharma, and demonstrate the final profound peace of nirvana, may I be always in their presence. Through the power of swift miracles, the power of the vehicle like a doorway, the power of conduct that possesses all virtuous qualities, the power of loving kindness, all pervasive, the power of merit that is totally virtuous, the power of wisdom free from attachment, and the power of knowledge, skillful means, and samadhi, may I perfectly accomplish the power of enlightenment.
May I purify the power of karma, destroy the power of harmful emotions, render negativity utterly powerless, and perfect the power of good actions. I shall purify oceans of realms, liberate oceans of sentient beings, understand oceans of Dharma, realize oceans of wisdom, perfect oceans of action, fulfill oceans of perfect oceans of action, fulfill oceans of aspirations, serve oceans of Buddhas, and perform these without ever growing weary through oceans of eons. All the Buddhas throughout the whole of time attained enlightenment through good actions and their prayers and aspirations for enlightened action. May I fulfill them all completely. To the eldest of the sons of all the Buddhas is called Samattabhadra, all good, so that I may act with a skill like this. I dedicate fully all these merits. To purify my body, my speech, and my mind as well, to purify my actions and all realms. May I be equal of Samantabhadra in his skill in good dedication. In order to perform the full virtue of good actions, I shall act according to Manjuri's prayers of aspiration, and without ever growing weary in all the eons to come. I shall perfectly fulfill every one of these aims.
Let my bodhisattva acts be beyond measure. Let my enlightened qualities be measureless too. Keeping to this immeasurable activity, may I accomplish all the miraculous powers of enlightenment. Sentient beings are as limitless as the boundless expanse of space. So shall my prayers of aspiration for them be as limitless as their karma and harmful emotions. Whoever hears this king of dedication prayers and yearns for supreme enlightenment, who even once arouses faith, will gain true merit greater still than by offering the victorious Buddhas infinite pure realms in every direction, all ornamented with jewels, or offering them all the highest joys of gods and humans, for as many eons as there are atoms in those realms. Whosoever truly makes this aspiration to good actions will never again be reborn in lower realms. They will be free from harmful companions and soon behold the Buddha of boundless light. They will acquire all kinds of benefits and live in happiness. Even in this present life, all will go well. And before long, they will become just like Samattabhadra. All negative actions, even the 5 of immediate retribution, whatever they have committed in the grip of ignorance, will soon be completely purified if they recite this aspiration of good actions. They will possess perfect wisdom, beauty, and excellent signs, be born in a good family, and with a radiant appearance. Demons and heretics will never harm them, and all 3 worlds will honor them with offerings.
They will quickly go beneath the Bodhi tree, and there they will sit to benefit all sentient beings, and awaken into enlightenment, turn the wheel of Dharma, and tame Mara and all his hordes. The full resort of keeping, teaching, or reading this prayer of aspirations of good actions is known to the Buddhas alone. Have no doubt, supreme enlightenment will be yours. Just as the Bodhisattva Manjushri attained omniscience, and Samattabhadra too. All these merits now I dedicate to train and follow in their footsteps. And all the victorious Buddhas of the past, present, and future praise dedication as supreme. So now I dedicate all these roots of virtue for all beings to perfect good actions. When it is time for me to die, let all that obscures me fade away. So I look at Amitabha there in person and go at once to his pure land of Sukhalati. In that pure land, may I actualize every single one of all these aspirations. May I fulfill them, each and every one, and bring help to beings for as long as the universe remains. Born there in a beautiful lotus flower, in that excellent and joyous Buddha realm, may the Buddha Amitabha himself grant me the prophecy foretelling my enlightenment.
Dedication to, having received the prophecy there with my billions of emancipations sent out through the power of my mind, may I bring enormous benefit to sentient beings in all 10 directions. Through whatever small virtues I have gained by reciting this aspiration of good actions, may the virtuous wishes of all beings, prayers and aspirations, all be instantly accomplished through the true and boundless merits attained by dedicating this aspiration of good actions. May all those now drowning in the ocean of suffering reach the supreme realm of Amitabha. May this king of aspirations bring about the supreme aim and benefit of all infinite sentient beings. May they perfect what is described in the holy prayer uttered by Samapatadra. May the lower realms be entirely emptied. By the blessings of the Buddhas who have attained the three kayas and the unchanging truth of reality, as well as the wavering aspirations of the Sangha, may all the aspirations and dedication prayers be fulfilled. Rigpa translations.
Very good. Om, ah, hum. Om, ah, hum. Om, ah, hum. Okay. So, having now said this, does any other questions come up before we start analyzing this a little bit? Okay. So then this starts out by making homage to Manjushri, the youthful. So it's through Manjushri's action to develop wisdom, to accumulate wisdom, that this is manifesting. That Manjushri appears to Samantabhadra, and Samantabhadra gives him this prayer that Manjushri has been looking for. That has been going to all these different teachers and getting these 100 different prayers to be able to get to this point, to get the king of aspiration prayers. So we pay homage to Manjushri for doing that. So remember that the bodhisattvas, these 8 great bodhisattvas, are like the highest level of human beings, acting as human beings to be able to attain enlightenment. So there were 8 of them. We've talked about these before, but just to review real quickly, Kasiti Garbha is the bodhisattva of cultivation, who is cultivating ourselves, cultivating everything that we have around us for the benefit of enlightenment. So he's like a gardener who is planning to plant a garden full of vegetables and fruits and flowers and so on. And so these seeds are Dharma seeds that they may manifest, come to the fruition of all this wisdom, all this skillful means. So next is the Bodhisattva Maitreya, who has the wisdom, who has the knowledge of how to plant the garden, of how to prepare the garden, how to do that, and to make that happen and so on. So Maitreya is the Bodhisattva who has that wisdom to make this Dharma grow. The next is Samantabhadra. Samantabhadra has the devotion to make this happen, to want to work through, to go through the path, go through all the changes, to go through all the vicissitudes, all the things that happen along the way, the devotion to want to make this garden happen, to bring these seeds to fruition of our Dharma. And then the transformation is the next by Akasa Garbha, who is the transformation, represents that transformation, to be able to see that we're making changes, that things are happening in our lives, that as we are doing this, by being on this path, we're already seeing changes within ourselves. We're seeing a transformation within ourselves. And then comes Manjushri. Manjushri is the wisdom of being able to pull all this together and being able to see, as a result of the transformation, be able to see these Dharma seeds, these Dharma flowers, these Dharma fruits now coming to be realized. and understanding that what it took for Maitreya to have the knowledge of how to make this happen, and then Manjushri to recognize that what results are coming, what that wisdom is. And then the compassion of Shenrezig or Avalokiteshvara is the next of the bodhisattvas. That the compassion, that with this wisdom comes this compassion, the skillful means to be able to help other beings, which in turn helps ourselves. That through doing for others, it helps us to purify ourselves. So Avalokiteshvara is the bodhisattva of compassion. And then is the bodhisattva Vajrapani. And Vajrapani is the Dharma power, to realizing all this now, is recognizing all this power that is coming, all this transformation, all this enlightenment, all this merit is really taking hold, and recognizing it, and being able to be the embodiment of that power. And then the last of the 8 great bodhisattvas is Sarvanavarana Vishkabhin, who is the bodhisattva of purification. That all this now is purifying ourselves within and without, and that now we become a proper vessel to become a Buddha, to be able to hold all these teachings, to be able to allow these skillful means, these methods to be able to flow through us. So it's the purification. So when we're thinking about these victorious ones, we're thinking about these great ones, we're thinking about ourselves being on this path and using these human powers that we have to develop. And that's what we're trying to do. So, and this is, so the vehicle in which we're doing this is our body, speech, and mind through our practices, our contemplations, our teachings, and so on like that. And then what we're doing is we're purifying the mind, the big mind. That is what we're trying to get to. That is our Buddha nature. So first we go through these 7 preliminaries for purifying the mind. So these are in our prayer book, and we've recited these several times. I'm not going to go into these. We talked a little bit about these last week, but if you look on page 10 and 11 of our prayer book, they're stated in there. And so these are like the tree. This is the frame on which all these Buddha practices, all these teachings, all these pujas and so on, all these are hung on these trees, these 7 branches. So it's taking refuge, prostration, it's making offerings, it's confession, it's rejoicing, it's imploring the Buddhas to turn the wheel of Dharma, that the Buddhas, the teachers, are here to help us to learn this, to be our exemplars, and then requesting the Buddhas not to pass away into parinirvana, where we can't see them, where we can't hear them, where they can't see us and help us, and so on. And then finally, the dedication that we do all this for the benefit of the enlightenment of all other beings. So this 7-limb prayer, or these 7 preliminaries for purifying the mind, are preparing ourselves to be a proper vessel to continue on now. So this is where we left off last week. So now we come to the actual aspiration. So I'm on page 2 of the King of Prayers. So this actual aspiration. So first is the aspiration for purity of attitude. We have to have the right attitude. If we have a bad attitude, it's certainly not going to work. So it's telling us, you got to get your attitude right. This is the first step in this. So we're going to let offerings be made to the Buddhas of the past and all who now dwell throughout the 10 directions of this universe. And let all who are yet to come swiftly fulfill their wishes and attain the stages of enlightenment and Buddhahood. So we're saying all the Buddhas of the past, present, and future. So the Buddhas are those who have been human beings who have gone through this whole pathway and have been able to liberate and attain enlightenment. So it's to them, this aspiration, to have the attitude that we can do that too, and that we want to do that. So then it says, let as many worlds as there are in all the 10 directions transform into realms that are as vast and utterly pure, filled with Buddhas who have sat before the mighty Bodhi tree, around them all their bodhisattva sons and daughters. So that we see everything all around us, that we recognize all that around us is this great Buddha field. We see it as in its clarity. Now, right now, as ordinary beings, we see it as all this confused stuff. We see it as all these appearances. So we haven't reached that level yet. But as we begin to do this, as we begin to develop this attitude that we can do this and so on, we begin to have those glimpses. We begin to get that light coming to us. We begin to recognize that. So we have to open ourselves up to it. And it says that there are as many worlds as there are in the 10 directions, and transforming the realms, all the vast and utterly pure, filled with Buddhas who have sat before the mighty Bodhi tree. So what that means is that for these Buddhas to get there, they had to go through this meditation process. They had to sit beneath the enlightenment tree. Bodhi means enlightenment. They had to go through this. So there may be those who had some kind of a shortcut or had some other tradition that they could follow. This is not, what we're studying here is not an exclusive path, but it is a path that we are following. And there are other paths. So, but this is the one that we are following. So with us, these are the instructions for that. And so around them are all their bodhisattva sons and daughters. So as we are going through this, and as we are dedicating all this, we are developing our family of our bodhisattvas, sons and daughters. We become bodhisattvas. We develop these relationships with these brothers and sisters, who then become our sons and daughters as we become enlightened, as we become Buddha, and so on. So this may not happen in this very lifetime, but then again, we begin to recognize that as we are doing this, as we are developing our practices and getting better at being meditators and so on, and practitioners, that we begin to recognize other beings as our brothers and sisters. So each of us here, as we're looking at these screens, and if we, finally get together, in person and see this, that we begin to recognize that we are brothers and sisters, and that we do share all these ideals and so on, and we're working together and we're helping to support each other like this. And we begin to think of ourselves in that way by having this correct attitude. So let as many sentient beings as there are in all the 10 directions live always and forever in happiness and health. Let all beings meet the Dharma that befits them best, and so that they may all hope for what all that they hope for be fulfilled. So everybody has, their own little way of approaching this, and it all can be good. What works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another person in its detail. So it's saying here, all this is good. All those details are good. And whatever we need to do individually, we allow each other the space and the time and the wisdom and so on to be able to do that for themselves. We're not going to say, oh, no, you can't do that. You can't do it. You got to do it the way I do it. Or you got to do it the way the teacher taught us, exactly the way he taught it. The teacher normally won't teach it. He'll teach, look, this is how I'm explaining it to you, but now you have to take it in and you have to develop your own pathway with this. You have to develop your own practice. So may they all hope, may they all get what they hope for be fulfilled. So this is the actual aspiration, the aspiration for purity of attitude. So if we have this attitude, that's very healthy. It promotes this growth. It promotes good action. This is the prayer the aspiration for good action. So the next one is number 2. It says the aspiration never to forget the bodhicitta. When we first started, with Buddhism 101, the very first thing that we talked about was bodhicitta. And bodhicitta has the 4 immeasurable qualities of loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. This is the mind. This is the enlightened holy mind of all the enlightened ones. And at this particular point, doesn't matter whether it is Buddhist or whether it is Christian or whether it is Jewish or whether it is Hindu or Muslim or anything, that the essence of all those enlightened beings, whatever path they follow, is having these 4 immeasurable qualities. And you should investigate this. Don't take my word for it, but look into this. Look at the heroes that you have in your traditions and see if they do not have these qualities: loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. And we've talked about this time and time and time again and so on. And this is the heart. This is the main essence of what it is to be a holy enlightened being. So it says here, this aspiration never to forget this bodhicitta, this holy enlightened mind. So then the text says, as I practice the training for enlightenment, may I recall all my previous births, and in successive lives through death and rebirth, may I always renounce the worldly life. So at this point, we begin to recognize that maybe we've had many lives, and that maybe, because of that, we've died many deaths. And we see that we are part of this continuum. But this, that we say that I've had many lives, maybe it wasn't Lance that had this life, or maybe it wasn't Tom, or it wasn't Curtis, or it wasn't Ed, or so. It was these beings. And we are part of all these beings. We are part of all this continuum of matter, of energy, of space that is all moving about in this never ceasing continuum, that we are all part of that. And that we recognize this, and that for us to be able to get to this point, to be able to receive the teachings of this prayer, that we have had to go through these and be transformed along the way to be able to get to an evolved state of consciousness and an advanced state of enlightenment. Maybe we're certainly not at Buddha's level, we're certainly not at the Bodhisattva level, but we are as a precious human being. And we've talked about that, with the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma, what it is to be a precious human being, to be born in this lifetime, and the characteristics of what it is to be born in a lifetime. So get out the text that I know you have somewhere that talks about the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma, and look at what it is to be a precious human being. So may in successive lives through death and rebirth, may I always renounce the worldly life. So now we're getting closer and closer to be able to recognize that this worldly life has all these problems, this samsara. Now we can identify this samsara. We can identify the suffering. We can identify the causes of this suffering. And then because of that, we can identify the antidotes for these. And then we can take responsibility for our happiness of being able to overcome that, or our suffering that we've caused ourselves because we did not follow the teachings, and we did not apply those teachings. We did not apply that wisdom to those antidotes to be able to overcome that suffering. And we say, I made this suffering. I made this happiness. This happiness may have turned into suffering, but that's because I was not vigilant. I did not study properly. I did not expect that, or I did not anticipate that. So we need to be able to take advantage of the teachings to help us do this. So the next stanza says, training in the footsteps of all the victorious Buddhas, may I bring good actions to perfection, and my mortal conduct be taintless and pure, never lapsing and always free from faults. So what this is saying is through the teaching of the Buddhas, through these different great teachers, that they are teaching us what it is to be a perfect being. So that's one of the things about this particular tradition of Vajrayana Buddhism, of it's teaching us the wisdom of how to become the Buddha. And we do that through what we call the deity practices of seeing ourselves as these different deities, as these different Manjushri, Avalokiteshvara, Vajrapani, Samantapadra, and so on, as bodhisattvas, and then to become like Medicine Buddha, to become like Amitabha, to become like Amagog City. All these Buddhas that right now you may not recognize those names, but as we develop this pathway, we come to know those names. We come to recognize those names. They are all within ourselves. They are all expressions of the activities of bodhicitta, of that holy enlightened mind in the way it manifests. So they all have that same bodhicitta, but they have different actions. They have different ways and do that. So this is the prayer of good actions, the aspiration for good actions. So this is what we're imbuing ourselves with, to charge ourselves to look into this, to examine this, and to bring this into our lives. May my moral conduct be taintless and pure, never lapsing, and always be free from fault, so that we are working to perfect ourselves. And then the third stanza here, it says, in the language of the gods, nagas, and yaksas, in the language of demons and of humans too, in however many kinds of speech there may be, I shall proclaim the Dharma in the language of all. So what this is saying, that there's so many different beings, and some of them are human beings, some of them are subterranean beings, some of them are gods, some of them are evil beings, and some of them are demons that come up within ourselves and so on. And whatever speech they understand, that the Dharma will speak to them. And it's in a language that is beyond just what we hear, just what we process in our mind. It's a language that comes from our heart and reaches into our heart through this true nature that we have, this Buddha true nature. So that's what this is speaking of. I shall proclaim the Dharma in the language of all, the language of love, the language of compassion, the language of joy, the language of equanimity. In other words, the language of bodhicitta. So now, taming my mind and striving in the paramitas are the perfections. So the perfections of being on this path, the perfections of being a bodhisattva. I will never forget the bodhicitta. May all my harmful actions and the obscurations they cause be completely purified, every single one. So all the negativities that I've created, all the blockages that I've created, all these I've created for myself. They weren't created by something else. I created these myself. These stopped me. So may all these be purified, every single one. So this is the aspiration, never to forget the bodhicitta. So I'm going to pause here for a moment and ask, are there any questions or comments? What do you think about this? Is this being explicit enough? What do you think about this? Curtis, what do you think?
Very lucid. Very easy to listen to you expound the meaning of these verses.
Is it clear enough? I mean, forget what I'm saying, but here in the text, I mean, is the text being quite clear, you think?
Yes, I am really appreciating the structure of the blue headings. I've read the prayer and heard it read, in teachings. But this really helps to show the structure, and that really helps a lot.
Very good. Okay. Anybody else have a comment about this? Are you beginning to appreciate this a little bit? Yeah.
If you're on an island, this would be a complete teachings that you would need. Everything you would possibly need, literally explained to you and broken down for you. There's really, you can get much more complex. You can get it to the point where it's baffling almost, but this is really simplified and made into a way that everyone and anyone can understand.
Lance, Sarah, I did forget my packet. I'm in the middle of some traveling that I had to unexpectedly do. So I left it in my normal location when I do these meetings with you, but I was able to go through it. And I think it was delayed in the mail a little bit, but when I opened it, I agree with what Thomas said. When I started reading all of it, it's so easy to digest. It really helped me bridge some things, and I really, it's really helped me. And I'm seconding what Thomas just said about it. It really is all you really need. It's like the 101, the most simplest form of explaining something. So I'm so thankful for it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I read it every night before I go to sleep, actually, when I'm in bed. And it may not be true, but I'm thinking that if these words are on my mind as I go to sleep, maybe they'll be in my mind through the night and somehow travel with me in my sleep.
I think that's true. I think that's a really, really good thing to do. Yes. Okay. Does anybody have a doubt about this or an objection or some confusion about this? I mean, it's fine if you do, and let's talk about it.
About something, Lance.
Yes.
So a lot of this is things for us to do. I will be virtuous. I will proclaim the Dharma. But at the bottom of page 2, it's about other people. So may all sentient beings, have happiness and health. How is that an aspiration?
Well, that's the Bodhisattva aspiration. To be a Bodhisattva, that to aspire that all beings are able to overcome their suffering and that to have happiness. That's a basic aspiration. When we talk about the 2 aspirations of Bodhichitta, that's what we're talking about. The second one is that we ourselves are able to overcome suffering. So it's through our work of helping others that we help ourselves. Otherwise, if we are just concentrating on ourselves and not helping other beings, then that's selfishness. And that's where so many traps lay for us. But if we always put the needs of others before us, then that is how we control our ego.
So it's implied in this that I'm going to help these beings have happiness.
Correct.
And health. Okay.
Correct. And it'll get more specific as we go along in the text here. But that's a good point, and we need to remember, what are the 2 aspirations of bodhicitta. So we talk about the aspiration for oneself and the aspiration for others. Pardon me, but the one for others comes before the aspiration for oneself. Okay. Well, then let's move a little further along and go to, so now we're going to talk about the actual aspiration now, the aspiration to be free from defilements. So what are these defilements? So here it says, may I be freed from karma, harmful emotions, and the work of negativity, and act for all beings in the world, just like the lotus flower to which mud and water cannot cling, or the sun and moon that course unhindered through the sky. So all this karma, we made all this karma for ourselves, to be free of that karma. To liberate ourselves means to be free from making karma, from the attachments or the aversions to that karma. And so what we're trying to do is to recognize what it is that causes that karma. And then we're simplifying our lives to not do those things, so we don't have that karma. But at the same time, we need to let whatever karma is, so to speak, in the works, we have to let that karma come up. We don't suppress the karma. We let karma, if bad things are going to happen to us, let those difficult, bad things come up. And then let me transform them through the teachings that we've been talking about so much and so on, about the different wisdoms and so on. That we transform those things. So we're neutralizing that karma. And if good karma is coming up, may we exalt that good karma and not let it turn into negative karma, not let us develop an arrogance about it or a conceit. Oh, I'm so good. I can do this. I can do that. I'm going to go straight to heaven. I'm going to be a Buddha or something like that. Those are seeds of bad karma, because that's developing pridefulness. That's developing arrogance, like I said, and so on. So good karma can turn into bad karma with that kind of attitude. What we're trying to get to is a point of peace, a point of liberation, a point of equipoise, of being the Buddha, sitting in meditation position, being aware, but not being so concentrated that we lose our awareness, that it becomes our natural state, that it is our natural state, and we're able to abide in our natural state, in our natural mind, and not be, fixated in such a way that we lose awareness. So may I be freed from karma, harmful emotions. So the harmful emotions, if you remember, there's 5 poisons that make up the 84,000 emotions, the afflictive emotions, we say. So the 5 poisons are ignorance, are hatred, are desire, are jealousy, and are greediness. Those are the 5 basic poisons. And those 5 basic poisons and all their myriad combinations make up the 84,000 afflictive emotions. So of course, are we going to apprehend every single one of those emotions? No, but we can see what is happening with ourselves. Do we fall prey to delusion? Do we fall prey to hatred and anger? Do we fall prey to lustful, passionate attachment? Do we fall prey to envy and jealousy? Do we fall prey to greediness, miserliness? Do we? So I'm sure at one time or another, all those things we have fallen prey to, but maybe it's been mixed up with several other things. So now we have a way of being able to distill it down to these least common denominators and be able to identify these things and be able to recognize what the causes were. Oh, I have this hatred because of this, this, and that. Oh, I have this desire because of this, that, or the other thing. And I need to be able to apply the antidotes to be able to neutralize those causes. before they become karma. So that's a very active thing, so our practices, our meditations, our contemplations are very active. They're not passive. We're not going to sit here and say, okay, I'm just going to do the meditation of relieving stress in my life by not thinking, like a new age teacher might teach. And it may have some benefit, at a very small level, very basic level to reduce that, but it doesn't last. And it's not getting to the root of what our suffering is, why it is that we are stressed out. That's what we're trying to recognize here through these defilements. So these harmful emotions, so to be freed from the harmful emotions and the work of negativity. If we have a bad attitude, if we go into everything looking at the glass half full or half empty, or maybe that's the right expression, isn't it? Half empty, and saying, oh, what a terrible life I have and nothing works for me and all this. You're just, whatever you're thinking about, that's what's going to be produced. That's karma. That's a natural law of karma. If I think positively, positive things are going to happen. If I think negatively, negative things are going to happen because I'm developing that propensity within myself. So we need to be free from the work of negativity, hurting others, hurting ourselves, hurting nature, hurting the earth, all these things, to have a sense of propriety, a sense of what is proper for ourselves and for all beings and so on.
Can I ask a question? Oh,
sure.
Okay. So I just wanted, this is me just maybe being, this is an intellectual question. So, so in relation to what you just said about like that your glass is half empty versus full. I completely agree with that, by the way. I literally I think that way too. Like I'm like looking for positive things all the time and I see them, but I have people in my life that are like the opposite and it's very salient. Anyways, one of the things, is it that this is like also from your actions? So like I'm thinking of a very basic example. Like if I'm stealing from people, then I'm thinking about people stealing from me, right? In my head.
Sure.
Okay, so is it that you have the thoughts first, or it doesn't really matter? It all kind of just is a gray, fuzzy thing where all these actions are just, and then you have these thoughts. Because I'm thinking if you've done something to someone else and then, or like you killed somebody, right? Then you're going to be thinking about someone harming you. As a result, you're going to be looking behind your back nonstop. So I'm wondering, like, is it the action? And then you start thinking like these thoughts, the thought patterns that start spending a lot of time in your head, or like, what do you think about what I'm saying?
What can you do without thinking about it first?
You mean like the idea to take an action that would be observable, like to other people?
Yeah, I mean, you can't do anything without having a thought first.
Are you saying that as a statement? Are you making a statement? Or are you asking a question?
Well, I'm making a statement, but do you agree with that? Tell me something that you do that doesn't require a thought.
Blinking.
Well, that's the body taking care of itself.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, your heart is beating, your lungs are breathing, there's all these things that your body is doing all by itself. So yeah, that's a fair thing, but those are automatic things that the body is doing. Okay. But I'm talking about if you want to raise your arm and if you want to pick up something and hit somebody over the head with it, or you want to hand somebody something, make an offering to somebody, you have to have a thought for every one of those things to do that.
Okay, so the thought precipitates the intentional action. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, contemplate that. Don't take my word for it, but think about, is there something that you can do that doesn't require a thought? Challenge that.
Well, I'm thinking about young kids because I work with little kids and watching their behavior patterns before they've watched adult modeling of like observational learning, before there's some implicit biases that start happening. Like watching really young kids that have like a natural connection and curiosity, and where like if you want to call personality or conditioning hasn't really.
Right.
So I'm thinking about,
Well,
I don't know. I'm thinking
well,
about that.
they're not aware of the connection between their thoughts and their actions, and that's what we as their teachers need to make them aware of.
But okay, but if you're taking that, so like, but you're saying they are having a thought, they just don't know they're having a thought. They can't label it as I'm having thoughts before I like want to help the bird, or I'm like concerned about this or that. Like,
Sure.
Okay.
It seems to me, you know, that's.
Okay.
Somebody had their hand up. I think it was Michael. Did somebody? Yeah, Michael's got his hand up. Did you want to comment on that, Michael? Your microphone's off.
Yeah. I think there could be lots of examples where we act mindlessly, thoughtlessly. I'm thinking mostly in terms of instinctual response. You know, that might bypass our cognition completely. I mean, it might be our lizard brain at work, but you know, if the lion's coming, whether it's an actual lion coming through the forest or it's the imaginary lion, we can pretty much get up and run like hell without thinking at all, without thinking we even recognize the lion. So I mean, I think acting instinctually is acting without thinking.
Well, what do they call that? The brain that is in the solar plexus? They have a name for that. The second brain. What do they call that? The survival brain, or there's a name for it. I remember.
Don't know.
Autonomous brain or something that's, you know, that creates the fight or flight, you know, response.
Oh, that might be the limbic brain, but that's up there in the skull.
Yeah, this is here, you know, and
Mhm.
in the solar plexus.
Hmm.
Dharma.
The horror.
Dharma.
That's dance.
Well, anyway, your point's well taken. And yeah, I mean, and that's the point. Are we doing things mindlessly because we're suppressing the thoughts, or do we have to recognize the thoughts as they arise and then deal with them before they become actions, which then we have to pay the price for?
Yes. One of the problems is that sentient beings actually act without thinking too often.
I see you, William. Yeah. Okay, William, you got a comment?
Well, if you are a person, well, let me give you an example first. I walk into a bar, somebody decides they're going to hit me. I grab their hand. Okay. Now, what can I do? Without thinking, I grab their hand. But then the next thing that comes up, I grab their hand because they're defensive. Next thing that comes up is, what am I going to do? So, am I going to hit them or not hit them? I have that control of what I can do.
Well, let me ask you this before you go too far on this. Could you have turned around and run?
Not very well with the fist coming at you. You're a little too close quarters to turn around and run.
Well, even entering the bar, you know, should you have an awareness of going into a place where there's a bunch of drunk people potentially, and you're going into a danger zone? Do you have mindfulness of that?
Well, not really. Why would you have mindfulness of that? I mean, it's obvious that there, certain people are
When you
kind
get
of,
in your car, and you start driving, are you mindful that you're driving a deadly weapon?
no, I'm not mindful of that.
Or maybe you
because
should
of the
be.
fact-
That's when
Well,
accidents happen.
Well, because of the fact that I'm not
But that's,
intentionally.
don't you understand? That's when accidents happen, when we're not being mindful and we're taking for granted a particular situation. And, I'm carrying 2 bundles of stuff like this, and I got to go down a flight of steps. And I'm
Got it,
75 years old and I'm not paying attention and I fall down the steps.
What can I say? Maybe
So
you
you
should
gotta
have
be
threw stuff
mindful.
out the window or something like that.
The point is, we have to be mindful, and maybe we do too many things. And because we're always distracted by trying to do too many things without thinking about them, and accidents happen, we get ourselves in danger, and things like this happen. But if we are quiet and peaceful, that we choose what it is that we're going to do much more completely. We just don't enter into things willy-nilly. We do things very, very, we have a plan for everything that we do.
Yeah, well, I've been on the safety committee, and there's never an accident. There's always a reason that this action has taken place.
And wasn't it always carelessness somewhere along the line? It was human error.
99% of it is human error, yes.
Okay, so that's my point. That's my point. And we have to be aware of what it is that we're doing. We are the actuators of all this stuff.
Okay.
And it's actually going back to what you just said, because you just said something that I felt was like important to this whole conversation. Is it's really hard for people to actually have I call it single task focus, where you but most people want to multitask and think it's a real thing, but your brain actually can't do 2 things at once. But most people think they can, but like the research says it actually can't. And so like everybody does these poor things, and like what William was just saying, or what you're saying to your point is we're not doing things with intentional purpose. We're just scattered. And so I think it's like these distractions, but it's very hard for people because there's like a dopamine hit when you feel like you're being effective and efficient with all these multitasking things, but you're really not. But anyways, I just wanted to say that, like,
All right, well, let Ed speak. He had something he wanted to say.
Oh, not on this topic though. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to change. Yeah.
All right. Well, then let me, all right. So here, the next part of this sentence here, it says, an act for the benefits of, an act for all beings in the world. So may I be freed from karma, afflictive emotions, and the work of negativity, and act for all beings in the world.
Okay.
So there again, there's our bodhisattva motivation to do this for the benefit of others. So go ahead, Ed.
I'm interested in the word freed, F-R-E-E-D, which sounds like, I don't see another, whether that's past or passive. I don't see that structure of language anywhere else on this page. May I be freed sounds like you're expecting somebody else to do something rather than may I be free.
No, you're freeing yourself. You're freeing yourself from karma, from harmful emotions and the work of negativity.
Okay.
You're freeing yourself. You're liberating yourself.
But to me, that's may I be free of. May I be.
Isn't it the same thing?
I don't think so. I mean, I think this implies another agent.
Well, then how would you write it? I mean, you got to understand some English person translated this, and maybe it's not translated in the way that you
I don't
want it to be. So what would you want it to be?
Nowhere else on this page, and I don't know about the rest of it, do I see that construction.
Well, the point is that we're responsible.
Yeah, okay.
The point is we're responsible, and we're trying to make ourselves responsible for those entanglements
Okay.
that are caused by karma, caused by the emotions, and caused by our work of negativity. So we're trying to free ourselves from those entanglements. I think that's what the message is here.
I just wondered if there was a significance to that tense that I didn't recognize, but apparently, not. Okay.
It's a liberation.
Okay.
Isn't that more taming my mind?
Well, we're going to get there.
Okay.
So then it says here, just like the lotus flower to which mud and water cannot cling. So it says, put this back in context. May I be freed from karma, afflictive emotions, the work of negativity, act for the benefit of all beings, just like the lotus flower, which is, just like the lotus flower to which mud and water cannot cling. So here's the lotus flower that has arisen out of this, the stalk has come out of this defilement, but here's this flower that blossoms unsullied by the defilement that it came from. So it's implying that there has been a liberation, that there's been a process in place that has now created this flower that now will not be tainted, that will not be stained by the water or the defilement that is in the bottom of the pond that it came from. Then the other simile here is or the sun and the moon that course unhindered through the sky. So it seems that the sun and moon will never be stopped, that they're completely permanent in their ever-flowing motion and so on. What can stop them? That are completely liberated, they're completely free. So it is just a figure of speech, but it's trying to demonstrate that we become naturally freed, naturally liberated. That's our natural state. We're the ones that make it confused. We're the ones that try and do too many things at one time. Does that make any sense? Now, I know there's all kinds of, extenuating circumstances, but they're just examples of how we complicate things. And what we're talking about is our true nature. Our true nature is exemplified by the Buddha sitting in meditation position, in equipoise. So our aspiration to be free of defilements, like that, to be liberated. All right, so then I'm going to move to the next one, number 4. It says, aspiration to lead beings to happiness. Throughout the reach and range of the entire universe, I shall pacify completely the suffering of all the lower realms. I shall lead all beings to happiness and work for the ultimate benefit of each and every one. So this then becomes how it is that we free ourselves from defilements, by working for the benefit of others. If our mission is to do that, then we become very circumspect about what it is that we're doing and say, well, I've got to be pure. I gotta do this so I'm not being pulled down by defilements, and I'm doing this for the benefit of others. So therefore, it helps me to liberate myself from defilements. Does that make any sense?
No,
So who said that?
I had a question.
Okay.
How far are we willing to go?
That's a good question.
Are we willing to give up our own lives
That's a
for
good
the
question.
benefit of others?
That's a good question. Yeah. I think that's, we have to examine that question. We have to answer that. And I think that we can do that by using the tool that we have in our toolbox of the Eightfold Path, which is the fourth part of the Four Noble Truths. So we can refer back to that. So should I go back and talk about that, or can we recall that? Does anybody remember what the Eightfold Path is? If we are judging our life, judging our actions, judging what it is that we do and everything with the Eightfold Path, then we set ourselves, we are the architect of our life and the engineer of our life. So we're creating the scenario in which we're going to operate. And what are our boundaries? That's what I think Tom is asking. What are our boundaries?
Well, the Eightfold Paths are right view, right resolve, right speech, right conduct, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration.
Okay.
Like you said earlier, sometimes we do things without thinking about things. There's lots of acts of valor that people do on a daily basis that we don't hear about. They do it without thinking about themselves, but to help and benefit others. Those are bodhisattvas. We don't hear about them. It's not very glamorous to talk about that on the news, but I've seen many, many, many acts of valor without not thinking about their lives, not for 1 second, but to help others. And to see that in action, that's something.
Think about what they call them, the early responders or the first responders, or you think about people that are working in the ER and, they know they're going to see gruesome things, but they're protected. They've tried to protect themselves, but they're doing it for the benefit of others. And they know they're going to have to work, 16, 18-hour shifts, maybe 24-hour shifts. So the Eightfold Path is, that's the architecture of what your life is. Say, okay, I want to be a first responder. Well, then you got to expect that you're going to have all these things happen to you. Or you're going to be subjected to all these things. Maybe that's a better way of saying it.
But that doesn't really address Thomas's question of how far do you go? I guess that's an individual.
That's an individual
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
With an individual answer, and what we might do now is quite different than what we might have done 40 or 50 years ago. Those of us who are seniors, we look at life in a different way than we did when we were 19. So it changes, as our circumstances change. And that's why we say that karma comes from causes and conditions. So the causes are those thoughts, and the conditions are the stuff around us that we have put ourselves in those conditions. Am I a first responder? Am I working in an ER? Do I work in a library? Where, am I driving a car every day? 150 miles every day? how many opportunities are there for error? You know, do I have time to be sloppy about it? So it's causes and conditions. So these good actions, you know, here, this is the aspiration for good actions. What we're talking about here is the mindfulness of those good actions. So this point number 4 is the aspiration to lead beings to happiness. That becomes, you know, our primal cause. You know, when we talk about the Shri, you know, and I know some of you may not recognize this, but Om Mani Padme Hum Shri. There's a seed syllable called Shri. The mantra goes round. And that Shri means the primal cause. The primal cause of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas is to benefit all sentient beings. That's their primal cause. To lead beings to happiness. You know, we as ordinary beings, we may not have that purity. We may not be thinking in those terms. There may be a selfish component there, but nevertheless, you know, that we want to bring beings to happiness. We want to bring ourselves to happiness. Everybody wants happiness. So then the next point becomes point number 5. It says aspiration to wear the armor of dedication. I shall bring enlightened action to perfection, serve beings as to suit their needs, teach them to accomplish good actions, and to continue this throughout all the eons to come. That I'm dedicating everything I do for the benefit of others, the dedication. So this puts me on that path of holiness, of purity, of the primal cause to help other beings. The aspiration to wear the armor of dedication. If I'm dedicated, or if you're dedicated to the enlightenment of other beings, to making them happy, then you're developing a selflessness, not a selfishness, a selflessness. And it becomes your armor. If you're doing that, now you're not going to be selfish. So it becomes, it becomes like a protection against your ego. Now, the ego is so devious that it can get hung up on that. Oh, I'm such a good person. I'm always doing this for the benefit of others, and I can get arrogant about that. So we have to be careful with that. We can develop a pridefulness of always doing things for other beings. You know, and you can ask, you know, some doctors about that, and some heroes, some policemen, and people that put themselves out on for other people. They can develop that kind of a egotistical attitude.
Lance, that was something on this point you're making now because of the type of work I do. I had to catch myself, like, because if you know, if you're looking forward to like the person's response to you, like, oh, they're thanking you, a lot of praise and all that, and started to identify if I didn't hear what I wanted to hear after I did what I would consider a kind act, and I've become more aware of my ego at that moment, right? Like, oh, I'm not getting what I want. And so in the last probably 4 weeks, Lance, I've made the most growth and recognize it right when it happens, and just acknowledging what's happening and letting it go and saying that's your ego. And this is an opportunity to grow in this moment. That's really what you're talking about. This point has really been significant for me in the last 4 to 6 weeks.
What brought you to that understanding, or that realization, or that recognition?
Just recognizing, you mean like a specific event, just recognizing when I'm doing actions for others and expecting, thank you so much for helping and taking this burden off, where I want some acknowledgement, right? Within a certain time frame.
Right.
Yeah, so those are things, because I try to do that frequently for people where
Well, did your practice help you do that? Or was it something you read? Or was
yes.
it something that just kind of seemed a wisdom that seemed to come up by itself? And you
No,
say, oh, there it is.
Well, it's through the reading, the intellectual academic component, and then having what like I think you talk about this often, where you can read about it, but until you actually catch yourself in the moment, then you're like, aha, you have your eureka moment. And then I said, now I understand what I've been reading, what Lance is talking about, what we're talking about, and this is manifestation of ego right here, some ego issue that's causing me to suffer. Like, oh, now I feel rejected. Now I feel angry. And so then I cut myself off and said, this is the moment where you grow right here and make a decision to grow.
Right. Very good. I think that's right on. And it happens to us, all the time, and more frequently as we become more aware. We begin to see that, and because if we're sitting by ourselves all day long, we may not recognize these things. These things won't come up. But if we're people that are social people, we're doing things, we're working in some capacity with other people and so on like that, then the dynamics of those relationships facilitate these things coming up and recognizing this. And this is why they say that the lonely meditator, the arhat, who goes off by himself into the cave, does not achieve enlightenment, because what he's doing is a selfish enlightenment, and it's not tempered by the crucible of going into the village and having to work with other people and so on. And that
But
becomes
is that what Milarepa did?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, over and over again. He had to build those towers, absolutely. And then even after that, then after he left Marpa and he went into the caves and he would go down into the village, and then he was being tempered further and further. He wasn't enlightened right away. It took many, 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 many years of cycles of him going to the cave and coming back out into the village and going back to the cave, and all these experiences that he writes about in the 100 verses, in the 100,000 verses. He's telling you how it happened. So yeah, it happened to Milarepa.
Sister Zara, that was very wise of you.
Thank you, Thomas. I'm just sharing. I just like y'all are like my group, so I can like tell you really what I'm thinking and feeling without being judged, because you all get it. I'm having a lot of moments, Lance, and all in the last couple months. Thank you, COVID-19.
So from the point that we were just making here, point 5, is that not the armor of dedication? That because you've been dedicating yourself to the Dharma, that you've been reading, you've been contemplating, to whatever degree you've been meditating and so on, that this is, that you have cultivated this armor of protection for yourself, of realizing this armor of wisdom, of recognizing what it is. So there was compassion of doing, but then compassion and wisdom are two sides of the same hand. And so it's creating this plate of armor.
Lance, I have a question.
Okay.
I think it's these headings that are teeing this up for me. This is the Aspiration Prayer. In a way, this whole prayer is a meditation on the nature of aspiration, aspects of aspiration. I looked up aspiration, and I didn't, just while we were talking, I didn't spend too much time on it, but I did find one thing, and I wanted to get you to comment about it. The relationship of devotion and aspiration. And just one sentence, and then I'd like to hear you say what your thinking is. what I found was some that said devotion is the culmination of the aspiration for liberation. And I'm thinking about this in the context of Garchin yesterday, talking about guru devotion and the importance, the criticalness of devotion. Seems like there are two circles that overlap a lot, devotion and aspiration. But tell me your thoughts about the relation in the two words.
Well, I certainly can't say, anything better than Garchin Rinpoche could possibly say it. I can only speak about, what it means to me. So, but the aspiration is like a desire, but a desire to me has a selfish connotation to it. Like I desire, to have that car. I desire to want to have this relationship with somebody. It has this lustful connotation, this desire to me. But an aspiration to me has more of a little bit of a more evolved, a little bit more of a higher intention to want to be able to have this experience or something. I aspire to be enlightened. To say I desire to be enlightened has this selfish connotation to it. I aspire to be enlightened so that I can help other beings, is what seems to flow from, is the next part of the sentence from my mind. So I separate it like that. I use aspiration in that way, that it is a more pure desire for the benefit of other beings and so on, or for myself, to want to have enlightenment, to want to be liberated. I have this aspiration to do that. I have this aspiration to want to be a teacher. I have an aspiration to be able to help beings and so on like that. Then the other part, was it the dedication you said? What was the second part?
The word devotion and its
devotion. So out of that aspiration, more and more, I find that I become devoted to the process of that aspiration, to making that come to be. I become devoted to it. And anything that's associated with that, reading the right things, taking the teachings, having the right friends, the right brothers and sisters, helping to serve the lamas, or the monastics and so on. So being devoted in those ways, those are all devotional things that bring that aspiration to fruition, that make the aspiration come to fruition, to attainment. Because I don't think you can have an attainment if you don't have some kind of an aspiration. And the aspiration needs to be powerful enough in the form of a devotion to get it to go through all the difficulties to get to be an attainment. So it's a sequence, it's part of a process. That's the way I think of it. What do you think?
I like everything you said. I'm seeing, I guess I think that these words, aspiration, dedication, devotion, there's a lot of overlap. In some ways you could flip them sometimes. Like you could say the dedication to wear the armor of aspiration. There's an element of semantics, but they cover the heart. It's an attitude of the heart. All these things are aspects of the heart's orientation.
The heart mind. The heart mind. So there's something, years ago I used to say, when we start, in this spiritual way, we have to redefine everything. We have to look at everything. The understood words become more important now because it takes on a new connotation. Everything before was all physical and intellectual. Now there's a spiritual component to everything. So I have to look at the spirituality of this. And it forces me to put things into into what might be a different order of understanding or something like that. Cause and effect. So yeah, meditation, this whole process is not a passive thing. It's a very active thing. When you're sitting there contemplating, your mind's going, but we are directing it. We are creating a mindfulness, one-pointed mindfulness on the Dharma. And what does it all mean? What does it all mean in terms of the Dharma?
I'm thinking of another word too, yearning.
Okay.
When we're humble, and there's something about humility and aspiration too. From a point when we're humble, we look up.
Okay. All right. So I think that's all really good. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. Does anybody else have anything you want to talk about? We're at the end of our session and we'll need to do our dedication prayers. But before we go there, just if there's anything else anybody else wants to discuss. I always want to know, is this being helpful? Is it, I hope that, we're creating a pathway of understanding good actions and not taking stuff that we thought for granted. That's why this is called the King of Prayers. It's so comprehensive.
Thank you, Lance. I love all of this. And every time I get to hear either new or it's the repetition, I just soak up one more glimpse of information to where I can, take the intellectual and start bridging it into recognizing better comprehension for myself and my life. So thank you for all of what you do for us. Thank you.
You're welcome. And may you become a great teacher.
And then I become a great teacher.
Okay. Well, then next week we'll pick up where we've left off, but we will read the whole thing through. And so now we go to our dedication prayers. So if we go to page, was it 18? And we'll read all the prayers here to the end. Dorje Chang, Tilopa, Naropa, Marpa, Milarepa, Dharma Lorgampopa, Pagmadrupa, and Lordri Kumpa, please bestow upon us the most auspicious blessing of all the Kaju Lamas. By this virtue, may I achieve the all-knowing state, and may all who travel on the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of samsara by defeating all enemies, confusion, the cause of suffering. Bodhichitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. I pray that the Lama may have good health. I pray that the Lama may have long life. I pray that your Dharma activities spread far and wide. I pray that I may not be separated from you. So now here, this is a reference to what we've been talking about. As Manjushri the warrior realized the ultimate state, and as did Samantabhadra, I will follow in their path and fully dedicate all the merit for all sentient beings. So Manjushri, the warrior of wisdom, to go to 100 different teachers and get 100 different prayers to finally reach Samantabhadra and get this prayer of good actions, to get this King of Prayers through devotion. Devotion was Manjushri had to have devotion. And Samantabhadra was the embodiment of that devotion. I will follow in their path and fully dedicate all the merit for all sentient beings. By the blessing of the Buddha, who attained the 3 kayas, by the blessing of the truth of the unchanging Dharma as such, by the blessing of the indivisible Sangha order, May the merit I share bear fruit. By the virtues collected in the three times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate word of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Sri Kumpa Ratna Shri, that's Lord Jigdan Sumgun, the founder of the Drikung Kagyu lineage, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, master of interdependence. Interdependence is all this stuff, all this multiplicity, all this, the master of that. And what we're learning is ourselves how to be the master of that and not be enslaved by all this stuff. To continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara, that we end samsara for ourselves. When we end samsara for ourselves, we attain nirvana, and may we rest in nirvana. And it says, glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Yogins, Yoginis, and Dakinis, dwelling in the 10 directions, please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the three times by myself and all sentient beings in samsara and nirvana, and the innate word of virtue, not result in the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth as a Shravaka or Pratyeka Buddha. May all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstruct to harm, misleading Mars and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings with my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta. And through that, may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I in any case gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones. Thank you all.
Thank you, Lance.
Thank you, Lance. Good night.
Well,
Chris.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you very much.